Measurement, observation, and inference. Our learning goals are to describe the different types of observations, both qualitative and quantitative, describe the difference between an observation and an inference, and know the instruments of measure and their units. Alright, length is easy. It's just the distance from one point to another. And we use either a meter stick or a metric ruler. And our unit is meters, and we use a little m for meters. Volume is the amount of space that an object takes up. And we use a graduated cylinder. They come in different sizes. Each size is appropriate for different amounts of liquid that we want to measure. Our unit is liters, and our symbol is a capital L. When we put liquid in a graduated cylinder, it's going to form a meniscus, or this little reverse bulge here, and we always measure at the bottom of the bulge. Okay, never up in here, but always here. When we measure, we also want to get our eye at the same level as the meniscus. Otherwise, we're going to get an improper reading. If your eye is above the meniscus, you might read too little. If it's below, you might think it's too much. So you want to be right on the level. Never hold a graduated cylinder up like that. You'll never get an accurate reading. You always need to leave it on the table and then lower your head to where the meniscus is. That's the accurate way to use a graduated cylinder. Mass is the amount of matter in an object. People use mass and weight interchangeably. It's not exactly the same thing as weight, but you can think of it as weight. All right. The instrument we use is a triple beam balance, although nowadays we use electronic scales, but you need to know what this is. Our unit is in grams with a little g. All right, temperature is the measure of heat, and obviously we use a thermometer. We use the Celsius scale, not the Fahrenheit scale, and our unit of measure is the Celsius degree. Okay, and here's a Celsius scientific thermometer. All right, so hit pause, answer the questions, and when you're ready, hit play. What instrument do we use to measure length, and what is the standard unit of length? We use a meter stick or a metric ruler, and the standard unit is the meter, which is a little m. What instrument do we use to measure volume, and what is the standard unit of volume? We use a graduated cylinder. The standard unit is the liter, and it's a capital L. What instrument do we use to measure mass, and what is the standard unit of mass? We use either a triple beam balance or an electronic scale, and our unit is the gram with a little g. Now we can put all kinds of prefixes in front of our units to change their value. If we use kilo, that means 1,000. So a kilogram is 1,000 grams. A milligram is 1,000th of a gram. A centimeter is 100th of a meter, and so forth. All right, let's talk about some valid sources of scientific information. How about textbooks? Would they be valid sources? You betcha. How about a scientific journal? You betcha. How about a magazine like Popular Science? No magazines. How about a newspaper? No newspapers. How about Wikipedia? No. Most websites are not valid sources. When we do research for our science fair or a research paper, there may be some websites that we allow you to use, but you always need to check. So textbooks, scientific journals are always okay. Never newspapers, magazines, and almost never websites. All right, let's talk about observation and inference. All right, an observation is the process of gathering information in a logical way. And there are two types. One type is called quantitative. Quantitative has an N in it. Quantitative observations involve numbers or measurements. Qualitative, with an L in it, involve descriptions that you gather with your five senses. The way something looks, the way it feels, the way it tastes, the way it smells, the way you hear it, the way it sounds. Okay, so let's look at my friend Fido. I'm going to put up some observations, and you're going to tell me whether they're quantitative or qualitative. Fido weighs 85 pounds. That's quantitative. It involves a number. Right? Fido is overweight. Well, that's qualitative because you've determined that not by measuring his weight, but just by seeing that he looks like a log. Fido is yellow and white. Well, that's qualitative again because you determined his colors by looking at him. Fido is 12 years old. Quantitative. It involves a number, right? You counted up how many years he's been alive. All right, let's talk about inferences. An inference is a logical conclusion based on an observation. So you look at something or you look at some numbers that you've collected and you make a logical conclusion based on those observations. Think of it this way. It's a little story you make up in your mind to explain your observations. Let's take this example. Look at this picture for a moment and think about the picture. Okay, so what does this picture show? It shows a puppy being held by a human being, and the human being using a paper towel to clean up a liquid on the carpet. You can tell there's some fluid here on the paper towel. Those are our observations. Now your inference is that the puppy went to the bathroom on the carpet. We don't know that for a fact, but it's a logical conclusion based on what you saw. But another inference, another logical conclusion we could draw is that this person was cleaning up something that spilled on the carpet, and they're trying to keep the puppy out of it, keep them away from what they're doing. That's an equally valid inference because both of those are little stories that we made up in our mind to explain the observations that we made. All right, so hit pause, answer these questions, and then hit play. What is the difference between an observation and an inference? An inference is a little story or a logical conclusion that you make up to explain something that you've observed. Think of observations as facts, and an inference is a story that you make up to explain the facts. What's the difference between qualitative and quantitative observations? Qualitative, with an L, are things that you tell by your senses, like looking at something, right? So it would be how something looks, how it sounds, how it smells, how it tastes, how it feels. Quantitative, with an N, involve numbers or measurements. So these would be observations that involve a number, like how many jelly beans are in the jar, right? A qualitative observation would be the colors of the jelly beans in the jar.